So I just learned from the good Michael Whiteacre that Shelley Lubben passed away earlier today from an apparent drug overdose at the age of 50. Uh, she was someone who I had commented on extensively in the past. And if you're late to the party on this matter, Shelley started out as a street prostitute, had a blink and you miss it career in the adult film industry in the mid 90s, and then she vanished for a while and reemerged as this Christian anti porn activist, ostensibly Christian. And um, she was the head of what was known as the Pink Cross Foundation, which fell apart in a relatively short amount of time as it was revealed to be just a front for Shelley's hustling. I think the most heinous act, in my opinion, the most heinous act of her many cons was when she raised several $1,000s for, I believe it was Sierra Sin's cancer surgery, and gave absolutely none of that money to Sierra Sin, and instead bought herself a new swimming pool and a new set of tits. Uh, I am going to stop myself, put the brakes on the criticism there, because I think to go further, I don't want to be seen as reveling in this, although I don't think there is anything good about Shelley Lubben. I also realize that I, in the past, have been far more visceral at times that would be described as completely tasteless, and so knowing that, I do want to kind of have a sort of a somewhat, at least solemn observation of this. I think Michael said it best in his tweet earlier that hopefully Shelley Lubben can find the peace in the next life that she never knew in this one, and that her victims can finally have peace in this life. I've been thinking about it back and forth how to, I feel like I should say something about this, and I've been thinking back and forth on it today because I had commented on her and her activities in the past, and had also been interviewed by Michael for his documentary project, The Devil and Shelley Lubben. And so, really, I think just the fact that she came to this end, this very sad, very tragic end, and it really can't, I really can't contextualize it as any great victory for freedom of speech or any great victory for any kind of more sense of moral righteousness. Ultimately, she was just a victim of her own problems, her own deep-seated demons. By her own admission in her autobiography and in her sermons and in a lot of other areas, interviews and that kind of thing, whether she fully realized it, fully understood it or not, this was someone who was ultimately just a victim of her own bad decision making, and it can be, I think it can be very, very difficult to realize the significance of that statement until you yourself are a victim of your own bad decision making. And I certainly have gotten to that point in my life, albeit not as far gone as she was. I have, thankfully, every time I've been a victim of my own bad decision making, I have at least had the wherewithal to counterbalance it with, right the ship with a series of good decisions. But the only thing, if you strip away all of the malicious, horrible things that she did, strip away all of the malevolent actions, all of the I don't want to say con artistry just because I feel like I don't want to be, taking advantage of what, like I said, should be a solemn moment. But if you strip away all of the bad things, and just look at the decisions she made in regards to herself. This was, I think, someone who was ultimately, the prodigal son who never, the prodigal son who never had the realization moment. And that's, using that prodigal son metaphor, I think is very apropos, and it's a very powerful thing because we all kind of have to go through that prodigal son process in our life of kind of running ourselves into the ground and maturing from that and coming back from it. And it's in coming back from it that so often I think, you have, it's actually, it's weird, it's coming back from that place, that dark rock bottom place can actually be, I think, a lot more dangerous and a lot more damaging than hitting rock bottom actually is. How you come back from that point is the real proving ground. And Shelley was someone who her life hit rock bottom, unquestionably, and the way she chose to come back from that was the worst possible way. She chose to come back from it in a way that involved, I really don't even want to analyze it too much because like I said, it feels in poor taste. I think I'll just leave it at that. But that's something I think it's interesting because now we're in the era of people like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson and these public intellectuals who are talking a lot about how to improve your life, your personal life for the better, and these self-improvement things. In Peterson's case, the 12 rules for life and all of that. And one thing that I think really needs to be explored, and I think the proactive thing we can take from this is when you are on that road to recovery, when you're trying to pull your life back together and get your life back on the right track, you need to be very, very, very careful and very conscious of how you do that. Because once you're, when you come back, when you get back on track, when you're getting back on track, that's when your decisions matter even more. And there is a stage of life lower than rock bottom, and it's called death, and you don't get to come back from that. And so that was where she was at, and it is very sad, and I don't mean to be condescending because I know I have said a lot of sarcastic and a lot of insulting things about her in the past. But that much, if we can take anything from that example, it's knowing that. Knowing that you have to be conscious of how you recover from rock bottom. And I say that because, people have wondered, why have I not been on YouTube as much in the last couple of years? Well, for that exact reason. Because I needed to, for me personally, I needed to, just strip down and look at the core machinery of how I existed in every single facet of my life. And so for that reason, I've been much, much more cautious about how I present myself to the public, trying to not be a shock jock, trying to not be an insult comic, trying to produce content that's more proactive and more positive, try to make more friends than enemies. And I say try because God knows I'm not perfect at that, far from it. But that is the thought that I think I would like to leave you with. My obvious condolences to Garrett, her ex-husband, to her children, to her family, all of that. I no matter what trajectory she was on in life and what she's done to people, I don't ever want to take away from the fact that this is the death of someone's mother and the death of a family member for some people, and so it's very, very important to me that that I do say that we keep those people in our thoughts and prayers at this time. Anyway, thank you. Take care.